All right, so today, guys, we're going to talk about on your elective programs, how to properly onboard, start, revamp if you need to, your competition slash demonstration teams. Okay, your demonstration or competition teams. Now, before I even go really into that, let me pause here and say, first of all, just for context, a lot of times people call these demo teams, short demo teams, and they don't necessarily understand fully that sometimes, or actually all the times, words are very powerful. And you can promote something you really don't want to promote. And if you call it a competition team, but you don't really do a lot of competitions, or if you do demo team, but you're really a competition team, it can be a little confusing. And then it's sometimes they're both. And so think about verbiage on what you want to call this. So like we only called ours team and whatever the name of the team was, and it was team. The goal was how do we take someone who's doing an individual activity like martial arts and learn how to go participate even when they compete in an individual competition, meaning like they're doing a routine that's katas or weapons, etc. That they're there with a team. We start and finish together. We do actually some team events like team demo or team fighting. And though they're learning how to collaborate, they're learning how to train together, learning how to set goals and targets together and lean on each other. And so it's learning the team aspect. So we just called ours team, whatever the name of the team was, right? So it could be your last name, it could be the name of the school, it could be come up with a name. And if someone asks, well, what is that? We'd say that, well, that's our performance team because we go perform at competitions, we perform for shows, right? And so because demo a lot of times, first of all, if you say that to someone non-martial arts, they're thinking you're like doing housework or something like that. So it just can be a little confusing term. So think about first, names do matter. Names do matter. And also remember, try not to think so much like a martial artist. If it sounds cool to you because you're the martial arts geek that's been doing it for 30 years, the mom, the first time into this, it might be very confusing. So just make sure you really put that into it. All right. Before we even get into that, let's start with this. One, you always need to be real with your numbers. And so you have your trial programs, you have your core program, and then you have your electives. You got to be real with your numbers to make sure you're not trying to skip ahead and do something that's just fun for you. You got to know your numbers so that way when you are launching something that's a new product or new service like this right here, that you're not skipping 4 steps ahead and damaging some of your programs and also undervaluing some of the programs that are before that. So in your trial, there's a certain cost acquisition for the customer, and the same thing for your core program, right? So your trial, you had to invest some time, energy, effort, and money to acquire that person to become a customer. The same exact thing has to happen to move them to the next programs. You're investing time, energy, effort, and money to create that product and that service. And so if you skip ahead too many steps because it's just more fun for you, you might actually cheapen the experience, which then cheapens the value of the program. So know your numbers really well. Next is, you get what you aim for. You guys hear me say this a lot. And so if you want a school that has a element of competition to it, which I actually think is healthy and needed, otherwise, what do they have their training for outside of belts? To keep them excited, motivated for a lifetime value for the program to really be improving and continually moving people to grow as an individual. Then you have to aim for, well, what percentage of people is this product really for? And what's my target? If I'm going to do it, I need a goal and a focus. I'm not doing it for my ego. I'm not doing it just for money. I need to have a goal. I need to have a target for when I do it. Okay. And then lastly, when I say on this, especially leading into this is, your company exists to serve the customer. You make money by how well you do that. And so how are we serving these customers if they've originally come in not to compete or even get their black belt? They're coming in to solve the issue of focus or confidence or respect or discipline or whatever it is. And then when they become a martial artist and they learn that, hey, I do want to earn my black belt, that means something to me. I do want to go compete, even if I'm scared, because I really want to push myself or challenge myself, or maybe I need it because I need more structure, more than what you have for your core program. Just make sure that the company exists to serve the customer, not your ego, not you need to go win an award, not you being up on the stage. If you get some of those accolades, great, good for you. But remember, you're in the business of this, and you chose it not just for martial arts, as a hobbyist that you want to make some money. You probably chose it because it spoke something to you beyond that, and definitely wasn't for just the money because there probably would have been easier paths for that. So you're more than likely passionate about helping people. You're more likely very passionate about martial arts. You're more likely very passionate about how it makes you feel when you were a student. and you want to give that back. So that being said, don't let your ego ruin some of these higher level elective programs, like a competition, a demonstration, a performance team, where you build it because you need some more plaques or trophies on the wall. Because remember, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay, all that being said, let's move into how to do this the proper way. So first, timing of the year matters. Timing of the year matters. You need to choose if you're going to onboard people once a year or twice a year. I prefer once a year because this is an elective program and it needs to be elite or difficult or challenging to work inspire to. And you probably need to make a choice. Do you want to have one version of this or two versions? What do I mean by that? Do you want to have the pro team, right? Do you want the Braves and the Yankees, and then have your minor league so people work their way through? Do you want just one big team for the school? Do you want to do by ages? And obviously keep it simple, right? What we had a team, which was everybody. And then we had people who, through experience, after about 4 or 5 years of doing this, they were a black belt, they were competing. They became the leaders of that team. They were helping run the team, and they were higher level skills, and they worked to the next level, right? So we'd have the pro level, whatever you want to give the term to that. You can call it elite, pro, whatever, phase one, give it names, it's fine. We got to that level because of traction of how many years we did this with success, okay? So, but start with the end, pull back. Next is, where are you going to use this team? Are they going to be doing demonstrations at events like your booths, at your birthday parties? Are they going to go like we went to professional sporting events and did performances demonstrations? I know one of you guys did that recently at a baseball game. Or they're just going to compete? Are they going to just go to a certain tournament circuit? Or both? And so you need to make sure you understand what the big picture and idea was. Okay, so one, I would say how many times you want to onboard new members, how many levels to the team you want, and then where are they going to go compete or perform. And so for us, we did both. We competed. We did 4 events a year, typically 1 a quarter. One of those was considered our big event, which was a travel event, somewhere we had to leave our hometown. All right. And that's, you pick a distance that makes sense, that also connects to the end goal. Obviously for us, that was summertime because kids are out of school, best case for that. And so once a quarter, they had a big event they would kind of go for, right? That big event could be performing at a graduation, performing at a major league sporting event somewhere, or a competition. And so we'd have big event once a quarter. Think about dance recitals to an extent. You're practicing and you have a performance. We'd have one big competition a year, and we'd compete 4 times a year. So on average, they'd have about 8 to 12 opportunities to go out and take the skills they've been working towards as a team and go put them in practice. Now, for those exceptional families that wanted to invest more time and money, of course, we'd help direct them where they should go if they needed more than what we were doing as a group, and they would still go represent their team when they're there. Okay, so that's kind of a baseline. Now, here's how we did this. School starts, and most of where our schools were, school started somewhere before Labor Day in the month of August. And so as school starting back, any kind of things that we're relaunching or getting ready, we'd reintroduce those. So in August, we would send out information about our tryouts. Now, the tryouts were basically show up, put on something, we do almost like American Idol thing. There was no like hardcore, you have to do X, Y, and Z. We'd give them a time period, we'd make it fun and exciting. But really what the tryouts was, it was an informational meeting. So we'd have 30, 40 kids show up. They do the 2-3 minutes, whatever, make it almost like a party atmosphere, get everybody involved, like cheer them on for just getting out there. And at the end of it, we would communicate with the parents about, hey, next year, here's the agenda. So you need to be, if this was in August, you already need to know like the next year what you're doing. And so we talk about the big event. We're going to Las Vegas for this big event. We're going to Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to Orlando, Florida, right? And that kind of, they could turn that into a vacation or a trip or something like that. That was the big event. And then we would go over the training requirements, okay? And we'd go over the costs, and we'd go over the commitment. And then we would go over who it's a good fit for and who it's not. And so we make sure that we'd give this information verbally, and then we'd hand it to them on paper after, not during the same time. When they left, they got it on paper. And then we'd give them 4 to 6 weeks to make the determination, yes or no. And so as a group setting, We wouldn't give them a lot of opportunity to ask questions because that can just go on forever when you have 30, 40 parents in the room. What we did is we created the opportunity for them to create the second appointment from there. So if they needed to book a time for us one-on-one, we'd give 10 to 15-minute blocks they could book in the future over the next 2, 3 weeks to make sure if it's the right fit for them. Now, for us, what was the right fit? We said if you've never done this before, you should not say yes unless you plan to do this for 3 years. We would communicate that year one is your investment. It's the most expensive year with time, it's the most expensive year with money because you know nothing. And when you know nothing, everything takes longer to do. It's more confusing. It can be a little more frustrating. And it's also, you have a lot of the material that you need to go grab, right? Whether it be physical material, weapons, etc., and skills. So don't invest a lot of time and money in something you're going to do as a one-off. If you're going to do it, commit to 3 years. Year one's your most expensive year with time and money. Year two, you finally know what to expect. So now you know better how to train. So you're not just hearing it from us. You've heard it from us and you lived it. So now you're better prepared. And on year three, by that time, it's less expensive because you know how, when it comes to travel, how to share rooms or travel together. And like, you've created a network. And so you know what hotels and how things flow, what time to get there. You're more efficient, which means more efficient with your financial part too. And you're better off with your training and you have a better understanding. So it's your year to have success. So we would say, hey, first of all, it should be a 3-year commitment if you're going to say yes now. It's just the best for you. Second is that we'd have a code of conduct and we would represent a team. So we're not there just to win a trophy, that we saw competition as a way to learn more about us as individuals. We would learn about how to handle victories. We would learn how to handle defeats. We would learn how to be a family that's not family, because guess what happens when you're traveling with people, you're competing and someone doesn't pull their weight or they stay out too late and they miss their practice and you're frustrated and you're upset and you're angry and you're 12 years old and you're mad because you can't win because your teammate's messing you up. Guess what? It's called life, man. Right? So you learn a lot about relationships. And so we would explain to them that the idea was to put opportunity for more pressure moments in life to learn things that we would normally not learn until adulthood or later in life, that you don't necessarily always learn in martial arts just by doing classes. And it gave mom and dad the opportunity to teach, and it gave us the opportunity to teach things that are real world experiences, even how to travel, right? Cameron was never on an airplane until he was part of doing this kind of stuff. So like, it gave the opportunity for growth beyond just the classroom floor. It's a small group compared to the full school. And so we want to make sure they knew the commitment for periods of time they should, and the financial and the code of conduct and what it's really about. For us, the training was they had to be in a specialized elective program already. So they could not be on a trial. They could not be on the core. They had to be on our 3rd tier program to learn the material that would be for competition. And then they would pay a one-time annual fee. Typically for us, it was between $1,000 and $2,000. That's the range. That would cover the 12 months of extra training we would do, which would be right after that 3rd class we talked about. They'd say 30 minutes. They work on the group shows. They work on drilling their individual routines, which they would need to do private training for to speed up the process. If they're going to compete on year one, like I said, that's what's the most difficult year. There's a lot to learn. And that's why we started this in August. They had to September's belt testing to make the decision yes and pay. So typically that's about a 6-week gap. You got plenty of time to go through it, look at the schedule, look at costs, look at time, give them plenty of opportunity to do that. And then at that September graduation, we'd introduce the next year's team. So that means they still had October, November, December. They still had 3 months after they've paid their fee for the next year to mentally start thinking about it. And guess what? The benefit for the student, if they never competed before, they got 3 months, 90 days to start those private lessons, to start those semi-private lessons, to start acquiring the knowledge base of what they're about to get ready for and not wait till January. And then in the month of October, we would release to them, and a lot of times we do at the informational meeting, what items were going to be available at our holiday sale in November that they were required to have as a team. We'd require parents to have a matching shirt. So when we traveled somewhere, you see 200 competitors and moms and dads and brothers and sisters all wearing the exact same shirt. So it was undeniable strength in numbers. We walk in. Matter of fact, there was an event, I think 2 years ago, we come down the escalator, 300-400 deep, moms and dads in shirts and the windbreakers and everything. So that's a team. Right? If you see a college team traveling in the airport, you know they're a team. That's what we wanted. And so we would put in there what was required and what was optional. And there was things that was required for us. We all had a team shirt for the year. We'd have typically some kind of jacket we'd wear to an event, like a warm-up style jacket. and there was obviously the martial arts training equipment they needed. Okay. And so we'd give that to them to have plenty of time to prepare and get it at the holiday sale. So that way in January, when the team's coming together and formalized together, they've been training for a few months on what they need. They've got all the equipment. They've done most of the investment up front. So now it's the investment of time and training. Okay. So we charge a one-time fee. Next is you have the equipment that's needed. Then the best train the most, the best train the most. And we would have 8 to 12 blocks of private lessons that we would pre-book for the year because that's all the space we had in our schools. And then the opportunity, best opportunity for them to do that was at our holiday sale. And we've kind of gone over pricing for that. But typically, for them to work with one of our instructors for the full calendar year, it was somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 for the year. And they would pay that one time. They'd have a standing appointment every week for 48 weeks, right? Because we're closed for some of the holiday weeks, things like that. Okay. Now, it is your staff or your duty to make sure that the calendar's filled up with the most opportunity for them to go perform. Because if moms and dads have invested the time to be at your location to train, the money to have all the equipment, and they're not performing, that's where there's opportunity to have buyer's remorse. Next is when they're doing these private lessons, they should become your best students. They should be the ones, because they're training more than anybody else, the best train the most, and they're testing their skills. There's only 3 ways to really see how good your martial arts ability is. You take a belt test, puts pressure on you. You find out. Like I remember back in the day, it's happened to me, and I've tested people. Some of you guys who do katas, you know what I'm talking about. You got a kata, you got to know for your belt test. You go up there, you're in your ready position. They say, announce the kata. You announce the kata, and they say, go. And you're like, first move is, and they're like, low block. You're like, oh, duh. Okay. Anybody ever had that happen before? You like completely brain melt because your pressure got to you. Then I'm sitting there testing kids that I know I've been training for years. They're on a black belt test. Okay. And it's like, all right, get you on elbow, right? They're doing some basic level form and they're like, and they're black belt testing. They can't even remember how to do a low block or something, because it's just the pressure. So belt testing is one. Next is competition. You're standing in front of somebody, you got to spar them. And you're like great in the school. You beat everybody in your school. All of a sudden you get in front of somebody not as good as you. And you got to beat them, and you got people watching, and you got the pressure. You don't want to mess up. There's like, this is not practice anymore. And then stress gets to you, you break down. So competition, okay, belt testing competition, and then just go get in a fight. Go on the street, call somebody a name, slap in the face, and let's see what happens. Okay. Now, of those 3 ways, I would not go tell your 12-year-old students or your 8-year-old students to go slap somebody in the face and get in a fight. I would not recommend that. And for most of you guys, you only belt test 4, 5, 6 times max a year. Some of you guys less than that, right? For me and in the schools that I grew up, it was twice a year. Every 6 months we tested. And so if you're 12 years old, you only test every 2 months or twice a year. It's not enough pressure. Think about it in academic school. You guys get a pop quiz every Friday, right? You get some kind of test every week. So the teachers know where you are with the material. Are you really learning it? And so if they're not competing and you're only testing 4 times a year, that's not enough volume of pressure. And so that's what it's really great for, okay? Then these students become your best fanatics, your fans of martial arts, who one day become your staff, one day become your cultural warriors. They're protecting the energy of everything you're building. With a small little caveat over here is eventually these are also the ones who give you the biggest problem sometimes, because they feel, anybody know the word? Entitled. They're spending all this time and money and energy. They're winning. They might even think they're better than what than you offered for them. And so then there's the challenge of making sure this does not become a clique and you have a culture that erodes. And that happens because you give up the control because you're like, oh, I don't know that. I don't want to travel. I just want this for the revenue. And you don't want to put in the work. And then what happens is they go do their own thing and they erode your school and they actually take your students and they go somewhere else because they meet these people at the competition like, oh, well, let's go train with that person. And it will happen. And so you protect that by making sure that you're not discrediting people. You're not trying to say, no, don't ever do that. You're not trying to manipulate. What you're trying to do is create such a high level of value because you're invested and you're building a lifetime value that they don't need to go anywhere. And if there's something you can't provide, a skill, then you already need the relationships of people in the space that you trust that would not take your students down the wrong course, because we know people will manipulate other people. Okay. So why does this have such an impact in your school? One, because yes, they're spending more time in your school, which means they'll spend more money in your school, which means hopefully their skill sets are improving and they become your calling card. They are demonstrating what your student should become physically, emotionally, spiritually, ethically. They should represent what martial arts is about before even black belt. And it becomes, like I said, the catalyst for the culture of what you're building. And so then how does it create more opportunity for you? Well, when you go to an event and you have a team that can show up and perform, it automatically, it's like a blue check mark. It gives you some credibility. I remember as a kid, my grandmother would brag about me, and whoever she was bragging, like some older relative of mine. I'm like 8 years old. They're like, "Oh, show me a move." Anybody ever get that one? Like, show me a move. Yeah, let me show you how to do a jab cross. Like yeah. Is that really what you want to see? Let me show you how to do a front kick, side kick. Like what? You don't go to a football player and say, "Hey, show me what you got. Hey, throw me a ball. Let me just, like, hey, I'm a soccer player. Show me what you got." You start kicking a ball around. Like that's just, but martial arts are like, "Hey, show me what you got. What are you gonna do? Spinning kick? Come on, what do you want?" Okay. So like when you show up to a booth and they're like, "All right, well, you're XYZ martial arts." People see better than they hear. Now you have this team walk out and they represent discipline. Oh, the things you say you sell. They represent respect as how they treat the facility. Listen, I've been to places where our team showed up, another school's team was there, and the other team, they're playing around, goofing off, messing with us up, pulling a fire alarm. And then our team is like strong, disciplined, moving together, working together as a team, go eat together as a team afterwards, show up as a team, wear the same stuff as a team. And then so when mom's like, "Oh, we're looking for focus and respect and discipline," they say they do it. They say, "Oh, but look, that's where I'm going." People see better than they hear. And so what it does is it gives you a blue check mark. When you show up with a team that actually is legitimate doesn't have to be high level, doesn't have to be flipping and tricking and kicking. And if you can do all that, great. What it needs to be is structured and discipline. If you guys were in the class that I did for that little bit of time on Sunday morning, that little bit, like 10 minutes where everybody's sweating for 10 minutes, and all we did stood still. That was the idea. It's called layers. That would have been a 7-year-old class. And they would have been all trial or core level members, but I'm layering skills so when they evolve to the next level, they can move in unison. Even your lineups on your trial kids, when you're disciplined, you're hard, not mean, but you're hard at the beginning and you're structured on lineups, they are learning without even knowing it, how to be prepared to be on one of those teams one day. Cameron was just at an event where these teams come in and compete, hundreds of kids, or not kids, or young adults, I guess, for doing like shows for band. And they pay money to be on this course for 2 months. They're 18 to 24-year-olds, I believe. They spend thousands of dollars and sleep in hotel rooms and travel all over competing. And they're like 200-300 people deep in these bands, and they compete, right? Post high school. And so like they're dedicated, they're all in. If 1 or 2 or 5 or 12 of those people start moving out of a sequence, it doesn't look right. But when you watch the stuff on TV, and I can't imagine what it looks like live, I'm always amazed, like, how do you get 50, much less 200-300 people moving in unison and like shaping letters on a football field and playing instruments and doing that? Like, it's crazy what people can pull off when there's alignment with the North Star of a mission. And so with competition, with the performance, with the demonstration team, yes, it brings money. Yes, it brings higher quality of value to your product. Yes, it gives you the ability to put your stamp on the martial arts universe that you are a legitimate educating people that can go win and compete. But how about people who can just win in life because you're actually given the opportunity for them to be stress tested more often? And that's what the teams are for. Okay, so here's our fast version of how we did this. August, our promo for the event was we would talk about our team all year round. Every time our team's doing something, we'd promote them internally. We'd also send press releases every time they were doing something big. They just won a big competition. They just came back. We sent press releases while we're there. Okay. Everybody who's at the event this weekend, you should have sent a press release to your local paper saying, hey, staff of XYZ Martial Arts went through a 3-day course in Atlanta, Georgia. They traveled there. Like, you should always do this, right? Send them the opportunity to publish what you're doing positive in the world. And so we're promoting internally all the time about what our team's doing. So that's a promo right there, right? They see them in action. And so in August, June and July, we're promoting in August, but August, we'd have our tryouts. Our tryouts are more informational meeting. They make the decision by September. They have October, November, December to go and pre-start their training one-on-one to get ready. They buy their stuff in November. And then we have a 30-minute extra training for those people from the elective class that they had to be in, qualify to be on that. And we'd have one big event a quarter. That could be a competition. It could be a demonstration. We'd have 4 competitions a year as a team. One of them was a big event that we have to travel to, right? We would put together team demos for that competition, and we'd help them with their individuals, forms, fighting, weapons, etc. And we would require them to have a team shirt. We'd have so many percentage of practices they have to make for the year without, excuse absences, all they're allowed. They had to be at those 4 events, all right? If there was a reason why, of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but they can't just decide, to pick and choose. We had a code of conduct, how they perform at the event as a team. And if they went to an event solo, how to perform. They had to meet that. It was very important to us. And the parents had to follow that, right? It was very important that the whole unit worked together as a team. At an event, we'd have a pre-event workout together. Nobody really does this, right? We'd have a pre-day meeting every day if it's a 2 or 3 day competition where we'd get together and everybody, and no one was allowed to leave until the last person competing. It's unfair and unwise for you to create a culture where, hey, I'm done with my thing. Peace out. I'm done. We can go hang out and go to Universal Studios. That's not a team. A team starts together and finishes together. And then we'd finish the night with a debrief each night with the families. It makes for longer days. It makes for more work. And it seems like, oh, those other people, their team lets them go do whatever. Yeah, because they're playing to win a competition. We're playing to win life. They're playing to win competition. We're playing to win life. They pick the best players to be on their team. We build the best players from our school. And so you have to really understand where you want this to serve the customer, not your ego. Do you need to win a little karate tournament so bad that that's what's most important? That you're willing to use kids to help you fulfill your ego? Come on now. To me, it's a sad statement when I see people at these tournaments for 30, 40 years, and they're the ones still competing. They're older than me. They were competing when I was a kid. They're a little bit older than me. They're still competing. I'm like, you haven't won enough trophies? This is like amateur status. At some point, you're supposed to learn a lesson here to launch it to life and go compete at life. But they can't figure that out. So make sure that you start with serving the customer. And that's why if you run this right and you start at the right time, your students have the ability to get tested more often, belt testings, competitions, and we can do away with the real fighting thing because we don't want them really doing that. They learn about how to operate as a team. They learn how to set goals bigger than just a belt, and they train more. And when they train more, guess what? They fall in love with martial arts more, and they create a better product for you and for them, and they become the catalyst for the culture and everything you do inside your martial arts school. And I will tell you, the best train the most, they will spend the most, they will invest the most money, they'll invest the most time, they'll invest the most energy. And if you do this with a hands-on approach, it will continue to feed the engine of the revenue, the engine of the culture, of the energy. I can't tell you that. Like, it's the energy, so you feel it. And they become the source of the people that will help the dream get bigger even for you. And if you don't have this on the radar, if you don't know anything about this world, start investing in going to events and watching and seeing what's good and what's not good. It is probably, if not the most, definitely top 2 or 3 reasons why I was ever able to hit millions of dollars in revenue. It's because a small percentage of the people spent the most time and money because I invested everything into making sure I'm building them for not just their black belt and not just to win a competition, but to have experiences so they can learn about themselves, what makes them tick, what makes them move, what motivates them, what inspires them, so they're ready for the big game called life. All right.